Welcome, true believers, to Badwolf Comics. I'm your host, the Badwolf, and today we're going to do an overview of the custom omnibus Bishop, the Last X-Man. Welcome back, true believers. We're going to do another custom omnibus overview. This is Bishop, the Last X-Man. I was originally attempting to omnibus the entire X-Men timeline with things that only had paperbacks and whatnot, but with the X-Men's anniversary coming up next year, I really wanted to focus on specific characters that weren't likely to get the omnibus treatment. So we started with Bishop. He's my favorite time-traveling X-Men. Sorry, Cable. Let's take a look. All right, here we have Bishop, the Last X-Man Custom Omnibus. This book collects 1994's Bishop miniseries 1-4, 1997's X.S.E miniseries 1-4, 1998's Bishop X.S.E 1-3 miniseries, 1999's Bishop the Last X-Man 1-16, and 2001's Bishop and Gambit 1-6 miniseries. Here's our dust jacket. The first issue cover for Bishop the Last X-Man. Very nice. Here's our spine. And the back, which is basically just all the collected covers. Now, the friend of mine that did this, he's since retired, so I can't help you with where did you get it, how can I get one. He doesn't do it anymore. Basically, he got overwhelmed. He's just one man trying to, raise a family and do this in his spare time. And it just became so overwhelming with the tidal wave of demand that he went on vacation for a while, and he may or may not return. We don't know. But here's the hardcover, the actual cover of the book. Very nice. Bishop on the back here. And it's a glued binding, something that he did at home, and he's really good at it. I really like this first page. It's like a felt page almost. You can feel it. It's got texture to it. It looks really good. I really enjoyed that. That was kind of a bonus. All right, and the Bishop series 1-4 was basically Bishop has come from the future and joined the X-Men. In a post-apocalyptic future, and he's been on the team for a little while now. He's having some bad dreams about losing some of his prior teammates when he first got here. But basically what happened was Bishop came through chasing other mutants from the future that had gone into the past to try and escape. And here he's trying to find Mountjoy. This is all about Mountjoy. Mountjoy is a mutant that can basically absorb other people and mutants. He can either become part of them and hitch a ride, or he can absorb them completely and destroy them. As you see here, he just kind of hitched a ride and got back. But this is all about Bishop trying to catch Mountjoy, one of his oldest enemies from the future. And here we have Shard. His sister Shard had died. They basically took her whole personality and uploaded it into this hologram. It's an interactive hologram, so it's basically her in holographic form. But I really enjoyed the story of this. It wasn't too galactic impacting per se. It's definitely more of a localized story where he's just trying to apprehend one of his old baddies from back in the day. The whole time Bishop has been struggling with the whole code of not killing people, because in the future he's used to just you have to kill to survive. If you know anything about Bishop, his power is to absorb and redirect energy. The next one we have is the X.S.E, the Xavier Security Enforcers 1-4. Now this is everything that happened before Bishop had come into the future and before he had joined the X-Men. This is the tale of him and his sister growing up in the future and how they eventually became X.S.E officers. Here's her power manifesting for the first time. Kind of a life or death thing. It helped trigger her mutant power. And then all Shard ever really wanted was to rise in the ranks of the X.S.E, and she kind of rode on her brother's coattails, but it was always kind of a living in my brother's shadow kind of story. So they kind of had those fights on and off. Here's the first time Bishop meets his team. This is Randall. This is one of the folks that died on Bishop's first initial introduction into the Marvel Universe. And here's the finale of that. And then we have the 1-3 miniseries Bishop EXE, which is basically just another story of the days of Bishop being in the X.S.E in the future, and just another one of their adventures, their interactions with the Hellfire Club, the same old story of fanaticals trying to take out government officials to start a war between humans and mutants. It was an alright story. I didn't enjoy this as much as I enjoyed the first two stories. Overall, it wasn't bad. The art's still pretty good, and the character progression was pretty good. And it's Bishop, so, I mean, what's not to like? I mean, we really just wanted to get to this. Bishop, the Last X-Men. Now, I had never read this story prior to binding this book. I didn't even know it existed until I was mapping this book. But yeah, this is really the story of Fitzroy and Bishop's final encounter. It's one of his loose ends, you might say, that he had to tie up from being in the X.S.E. He's been having nightmares here at the Xavier Institute, and just decides it's something that he has to finish. He can't stay on. It's old business he needs to finish before he can move on. So Storm wishes him farewell, and he goes off on his journey. And he runs into this poor kid that's just kind of caught in the crossfire. And in this battle with these chronomancers, so to speak, they basically pulled Bishop back through time into the future. With this little hitchhiker kid that Bishop tried to save, he inadvertently pulled him through time and pulled this kid on this adventure with him. And once there, he was out in the desert. Bishop is picked up by these band of mutants. They've got Bishop tied up at first because they're not sure if he's friend or foe. But Bishop makes friends with the new mutants. More of they look up to him, so to speak, because he's the last X-Man. He's revered. Then they're all sent on a mission to a place called Dundween, and that's where we get the Kith trilogy in Bishop the Last X-Man. It's a 3-parter, and they're on this trail out in the desert, and they end up going to this place. It kind of reminds me of Quarth from Game of Thrones, just this city out in the middle of the desert. But they get here, and it's kind of deserted, and it's, they're welcomed, but most people are hiding in the shadows and whatnot. And it's basically this gargoyle race. Keep the peace. They have the city has a treaty with these folks to where they sacrifice folks from time to time, and then they leave them alone. So they go down here, they find out they're trying to make a deal with them to say, hey, we'll help you with other means, don't keep eating the people. But it turns out the Chronomancer got there first and made a deal, and things go bad. So through this, they're just trying to free all the captives. They found all the previous children that were sacrificed. It looks like it's more of a long-term stasis that they put them in before they eat them, so many of them were still alive. And so they went in to try and save them. Battle ensues. So after having solved that problem, this small town, Dundween, is very thankful, and they send a bunch of their folks with Bishop on their little quest to try and save his sister. And during this time, he finds in this cave a sentinel. This sentinel had been reprogrammed by Wolverine and Storm to leave a last message for the last X-Men or mutant like them, and it ended up being Bishop, which gave him this key, which is Aurora's little headband that she wore for years. And this actually goes into that story where the whole book just goes into the flashback of Wolverine and Storm, and them reprogramming this Sentinel and leaving a final message for the future, knowing that they're going to their deaths in their last battle. This is actually kind of cool. I really enjoyed that little mini story. It was kind of nice, just a little excerpt in there. And here we are moving through the mountains to the point where they're in the snow. Everyone's having their doubts. Bishop has to give a little speech. And then there's an avalanche. Of course there's an avalanche. You're in the mountains with the snow. Why wouldn't there be an avalanche? And then they meet the Morlocks. Here's our Chronomancer up to his dastardly deeds. And we find the Watcher is watching because, well, the Watcher's always watching. That's what he does. He's the Watcher. The Chrono War Part 3 here. The final battle between Bishop and our Chronomancer and Fitzroy. So they have this epic battle in the snow. The Chronomancer is a lot stronger than they had once thought, especially since the last time Bishop had seen him, so he wasn't really prepared for the level of energy. Bishop can't redirect the energy. He'll explode. But he hit him with this almost time energy kind of thing, and it basically superpowered him. But because Bishop had nowhere to direct all that energy, like a bomb, he exploded, but it was time energy, and it exploded him back into the present, leaving this poor kid in the future by himself that tagged along. And here we fast rewind to our present, their present, And the end of this was kind of odd because it just kind of abruptly ended with him jumping back into the present. Here is the flaw in this book. When mapping it, I didn't realize that I needed X-Men Unlimited 29, Maximum Security number 2 and 3 to get part 1 and 2 of Dream's End. So it really skipped some things, confused the crap out of me, and skipped ahead to part 3 of 4. And here we have the final, Gambit, Bishop, part 1 of 6, Sons of the Atom. I didn't put it in my Gambit books because I already had 3 books for Gambit, and we weren't trying to add any more to that, so I ended up putting it here. But during his bad dreams, he went to his fellow X-Men to try and figure out what's going on. They did this deep scan on him, and it turns out his mutant power makes his body a perfect incubator for this alien symbiote that's attached to his body, and they're trying to figure out how to get rid of it. Gambit wants to take Bishop on a trip to go see someone that he thinks will be able to shed some light on this. Enter Strife. Strife is the guy that created the Legacy virus. So no mutant on the planet really has anything good to say about this guy, but now he's here asking for his mortal enemy's help. Then Strife goes into his sob story about his life and how nobody liked him and he lived in the shadow of Cable and wah, wah, wah. The Witness, trying to kind of explain his existence, that he exists both in the past, present, and future. That doesn't look good. And back to being on the trail of Cable and Strife. But no one would have ever thought, in the end here, Strife actually ends up being the good guy. To atone for his sins of the Legacy virus, he actually takes the symbiote into himself and allows it to consume him, and therefore destroying the symbiote before it was able to get out and take over the universe once again. So this is actually a pretty good story. I really enjoyed the 6-parter. After the confusion of the few issues that were missed, it was actually pretty good, and here our heroes go off into the sunset. And that is that. This was our review for Bishop the Last X-Man Custom Omnibus. The friend of mine that makes these, he did gift me this omnibus. It wasn't something that I paid for or anything. It's just a beautiful work of art. He was great at making these books. This is actually one of my favorites so far. Probably right next to the Thundercats one that we did last time. So if you haven't seen that, go back and look at the Thundercats Omnibus review. That one's not as detailed because I haven't actually read that one yet, so I just kind of wanted to get something custom out there. But this one I read, so I apologize if it went on a little bit longer than it should have. If you like custom content, stick around, true believers. Bad Wolf Comics has plenty more custom content in store. Next up, we're going to do the Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1 through 5 custom dust jackets. I am the Bad Wolf. This is Bad Wolf Comics. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.